Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever liked someone so much that you changed how you acted around her? You became a little more agreeable, a little more available. You laughed at things that weren't even that funny. You texted first every single time. You were there whenever she needed anything. You did everything right, at least everything you thought was right, and she still looked at you like you were just a friend. Or worse, like you weren't even there. And the part that really stings? You probably watched her give her attention to someone who seemed like he was doing everything wrong. Someone who wasn't trying half as hard as you were. Someone who wasn't nearly as considerate or as present or as genuine as you. And you sat there thinking, what does he have that I don't? I'm going to answer that question today. Not with theories, not with lines to memorize or tricks to run, but with the actual truth about how attraction works and why everything you've been told about it has probably been making things harder instead of easier. Because the problem was never that you weren't enough. The problem was that nobody ever showed you what enough actually looks like. Nobody told you that the things you thought were making you more attractive were quietly doing the opposite. And nobody told you that the version of you capable of making a real, genuine connection with a woman already exists. You've just been covering him up, trying to be what you thought she wanted. So if you've ever felt invisible to someone you genuinely cared about, stay with me. Because what we're about to get into changes the way you see yourself first, and everything else follows from there. Most guys think attraction works like a negotiation. Like if they just say the right things, show up enough times, or prove how good of a person they are, she'll eventually come around. That's not how it works. That's begging dressed up as effort. When you beg for attraction, even subtly, she feels it. It shows up in how you text her 3 times before she replies once. It shows up in how you laugh a little too hard at everything she says. It shows up in how you agree with her even when you actually don't. And every time that happens, a little bit of the tension that makes attraction possible just disappears. Here's the thing about building attraction. It's not something you do to her. It's something you do to yourself, and she responds to it. You work on how you carry yourself. You develop real opinions. You stop being available for every single thing the moment she calls. You build a life that you're actually excited about. Exhales. And slowly, without even trying to impress her, you become someone impressive. Think of it like a fire. Begging is like blowing on a fire hoping it lights. Building is like stacking the wood correctly, getting the kindling right, and letting the thing catch on its own. One is desperate. The other is deliberate. She's not going to want you because you convinced her to. She's going to want you because something about how you live, how you talk, how you handle yourself made her feel something she didn't expect. That feeling isn't manufactured. It can't be faked. It only comes from a man who has done real work on himself and doesn't need her validation to feel good about who he is. That's the difference between building and begging. Disinterest is often just unfamiliarity. When a woman says she's not interested, most guys take it as a final answer. They either give up completely or they go the other direction and push harder. Both are the wrong move. Because what she's actually responding to in that moment is the version of you she's seen so far. And that version might have been 2 minutes of nervous energy at a party, or a few awkward texts, or one conversation where you weren't really yourself. That's not you. That's just a snapshot. And snapshots lie. Think about how many things in your own life you wrote off at first, and then ended up loving. A show someone had to convince you to watch. A food you swore you'd never eat. People you didn't click with immediately who are now some of your closest friends. First impressions are real, but they are not permanent, and they are almost never the complete picture. The mistake men make is treating her disinterest like a wall instead of a starting point. A wall means stop. A starting point means you just haven't built enough familiarity yet. And familiarity, real, genuine, low-pressure familiarity, is what slowly turns a no into a maybe, and a maybe into something real. This doesn't mean hanging around hoping she changes her mind. It means continuing to show up as yourself in natural situations, letting her actually see who you are over time. Your humor, your standards, how you treat people, what you're passionate about. Those things reveal themselves slowly, and they land differently than anything you could say in a first conversation. Thoughtful. She's not rejecting you. She's rejecting a version of you that hasn't had the chance to fully show up yet. Give it time. Give it authenticity. And let her response be based on who you actually are. Exhales. Confidence is the single biggest variable. Everyone says confidence matters, but nobody really breaks down what that actually looks like in real life. So let's talk about it like real people. Confidence is not walking into a room and being the loudest person there. It's not having a sharp comeback for everything. It's not pretending nothing bothers you or acting like you don't care about anything. That's performance. And people, especially women, can smell performance from a mile away. Real confidence is quieter than that. It's a man who has an opinion and holds it even when someone pushes back. It's a man who can sit in a conversation without trying to impress anyone. It's a man who doesn't check his phone every 5 minutes hoping she texted back. It's a man who's comfortable with silence because he's comfortable with himself. Here's where most guys get it wrong. They think confidence comes after they get the girl. Like, once she likes them, then they'll feel good enough. But that's completely backwards. Confidence has to come first. It has to come from inside, before any externa. All results shows up. And the moment you make your confidence dependent on her reaction, you've already lost it. She picks up on all of it. The way you make eye contact without looking away too quickly. The way you don't over-explain yourself. The way you're not trying to fill every silence with something clever. The way you disagree with her sometimes without making it a big deal. These small things communicate something her brain registers before she even consciously thinks about it. And here's the honest part. Confidence is a skill. It's built through doing hard things, keeping promises to yourself, knowing what you stand for, and stopping the habit of shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. That's what builds it. Not compliments, not her approval. You. Pressure kills attraction. This one is probably the most important thing a man can understand about how attraction actually works. And it's also the thing most men do completely wrong. Not because they're bad people, but because it feels logical. If she's not responding, try harder. If she's pulling away, reach out more. If she seems unsure, give her more reasons to be sure. It makes sense in your head, but it destroys everything in reality. Pressure is invisible to the person applying it. You don't feel like you're pressuring her. You feel like you're being consistent. You feel like you're showing her you care. But from where she's standing, it feels like weight, like an expectation sitting on every interaction. And when someone feels that kind of weight coming from you, their instinct is to create distance from it. Think about it from your own experience. Has anyone ever wanted something from you so badly that it made you uncomfortable just being around them? Where every conversation felt like it had an agenda behind it? That's exactly what overchasing feels like to her. And the more you push, the more she pulls back. Not because she dislikes you, but because the pressure itself becomes the problem. The counterintuitive truth is that pulling back creates more attraction than leaning in does. When you stop texting first every single time, something shifts. When you have plans and you're not always available, she notices. Not because you're playing games, but because a man with a real life naturally can't be at someone's beck and call. And that reality, that you have things going on, that your world doesn't revolve around her response, is genuinely attractive. Space gives attraction room to breathe. It gives her time to actually think about you instead of feeling chased by you. And there's a massive difference between a woman who chooses you because she wants to and a woman who tolerates you because you never gave her room to miss you. Let her come to her own conclusions. Your job is just to make sure what she's concluding about you is worth coming toward. Your value must be self-generated. Here's something most men never really sit with. They spend so much energy trying to get her attention that they forget to build a life worth paying attention to. And that's the core of the problem. You cannot borrow value from someone else's validation. You have to generate it yourself, from the inside, before anyone else shows up to notice it. When a man's sense of worth is tied to whether she texts back, whether she laughs at his joke, whether she looks at him a certain way, that dependency shows. It leaks into every interaction. She can feel that her attention is doing something for him that he should be doing for himself. And that feeling, whether she can name it or not, is one of the least attractive things a man can carry. Think about the men you've seen in your own life who just seem to have something about them. They're not necessarily the best-looking guys in the room, but they walk differently. They talk differently. They're not waiting for anyone to hand them permission to feel good about themselves. That's not an accident. That's a man who has built something internally that doesn't depend on external approval to stay standing. Your value comes from your standards, from the goals you're actually working toward, not just talking about, from the way you handle difficult situations, from the friendships you invest in, from the things you've gotten through, from knowing what you believe and living accordingly. Those things stack up over time and create a version of you that is genuinely magnetic, not because you're performing magnetism, but because you've actually become someone with depth. She is not supposed to be the source of your confidence or your happiness or your sense of direction. She's supposed to be someone who fits into a life that already has all of those things. And when your life actually looks like that, when it's real and full and driven by something meaningful, the right people gravitate toward it naturally. Build the life first. The attraction follows on its own. Communication style matters more than words. Most guys obsess over what to say. They rehearse lines in their head. They think about the perfect opener, the right compliment, the exact words that will make her interested. And then they deliver it perfectly and nothing happens. Because the words were never really the point. What she's actually paying attention to is everything happening around the words. Your tone, your posture, whether you hold eye contact or look away too quickly, whether your voice stays steady or gets a little higher when you're nervous, whether you're leaning in too much or standing comfortably in your own space. All of that is communicating something louder than anything coming out of your mouth. Think about how differently the same sentence can land depending on how it's delivered. "I don't agree with that," said with a calm, grounded tone from a man who's completely comfortable with himself, hits completely differently than the same words said with a shaky voice from someone who's terrified of her reaction. Same words, totally different message. And she receives the message, not just the words. This is why rehearsed lines rarely work. The line might be good, but the delivery exposes the nervousness underneath it. And nervousness isn't the problem. Everyone gets nervous. The problem is when your entire communication style is built around managing her reaction instead of just expressing yourself honestly. When you talk to her, talk like you talk to someone you're already comfortable with. Don't perform. Don't calculate. Don't monitor her face after every sentence to see if it landed right. Just be present in the conversation. Say what you actually think, and let your natural personality come through without editing it in real time. The guys who are genuinely good with women aren't saying magical things. They're just fully present, completely unbothered by outcome, and communicating from a place of genuine comfort with who they are. That energy is what she feels, and that feeling is what stays with her long after the conversation ends. Respect is the foundation of everything. This one doesn't get talked about enough in these kinds of conversations. Everyone wants to talk about confidence and body language and creating space. But none of that means anything if the foundation underneath it isn't genuine respect for her as a person. Without that, you're not building attraction. You're just running a strategy. And strategies without integrity eventually fall apart. Respect means you see her as a full human being with her own feelings, her own choices, and her own right to decide who she wants in her life. It means when she says she's not interested, you don't guilt her for it. You don't make her feel bad for having her own feelings. You don't keep pushing under the disguise of persistence. You hear what she's saying and you honor it, even when it's not what you wanted to hear. Here's what most people miss. The way you handle a no says everything about your character. Anyone can be charming when things are going well. But the man who receives rejection with dignity, who doesn't turn cold, doesn't make her feel guilty, doesn't suddenly become distant and bitter, that man leaves a mark. Not always the mark that leads to a relationship, but always the mark of someone with real self-respect and genuine class. And genuine respect isn't just about how you act when she rejects you. It shows up in how you listen when she talks. Whether you actually care about what she thinks or you're just waiting for your turn to impress her. Whether you treat her like a goal to achieve or a person to actually get to know. She notices all of it, even when you think she doesn't. Any approach to attraction that doesn't start with this is built on a weak foundation. Real connection, the kind that actually lasts and actually means something, only happens between two people who genuinely see and respect each other. That's not a soft idea. That's just the truth about how human beings actually work. So we've been through all 7 of it. And if there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's this. None of what we talked about today is about tricks. None of it is about manipulation or saying the right things at the right time or pretending to be someone you're not. That stuff doesn't work. And even when it does, it attracts the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. Everything we talked about points back to one person. You. Your confidence. Your life. Your communication. Your standards. Your ability to create space instead of pressure. Your willingness to let familiarity build naturally. Your respect for her as a human being. All of it starts and ends with who you are when nobody's watching. Who you are when she's not around. Who you are when things don't go your way. That's the man she responds to. Not the version of you that's performing for her. The real one. And here's the honest truth that most people don't want to sit with. This work is not easy. Building genuine confidence takes time. Creating a life with real purpose takes effort. Learning to pull back when everything in you wants to chase takes serious self-discipline. But that's exactly why most men never do it. And that's exactly why the ones who do stand out in a way that has nothing to do with looks or money or any of the surface-level things people obsess over. You don't need to become a different person. You need to become a more complete version of the person you already are. Grounded, purposeful, respectful, present. Do that work seriously and consistently, not for her, but for yourself. And attraction stops being something you chase. It becomes something that finds you. And both of those responses miss what's actually going on. Because here's what she's really saying when she's not interested. She's not saying never. She's not saying you're not worth her time. She's not making a permanent decision based on a complete picture of who you are. She's saying, based on what I've seen so far, I don't feel anything yet. That's it. That's the whole statement. And what I've seen so far is almost always incomplete. A few interactions, a first impression, a surface-level read of someone she hasn't had enough time or context to actually know yet. That's not enough information to write someone off permanently. And most women aren't doing that. They're just being honest about where they are right now. Which means the question isn't, how do you convince her she was wrong? The question is, what does she see when she keeps watching? Who are you when you're not trying to make an impression? What shows up over time when the performance stops and the real person is just there? Because that's what actually shifts things. Not charm, not strategy, not persistence that quietly crosses the line into pressure.